Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming to you guys with a video ranking my top 5 TV shows of 2024. Alright, so it's another video in a series of videos recapping the year of 2024 in TV for me. So just before this should be my top 10 TV episodes video, and then before that one, I also did a bit of a longer one, a tier list video, ranking every single show that I saw, like even an episode from, for the year of 2024. So really had fun doing that tier list, so be sure to check that out. I'll try to link both of those videos, here, but this is my top 5 TV shows video for the year of 2024, and then after this one, I'll have my most anticipated for 2025, which I think I've already checked out 2 2025 shows, so we'll get into that one, and then obviously start looking forward then to the year 2025. I'll also probably be doing my award show, but that'll probably be taking place on my live show, Let's Talk Television. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. Within the next couple of weeks, I'll probably be putting that one together. So anyways, love to hear your guys' thoughts on TV in this year, and obviously your top shows from the year. As I said in previous videos, I do think this year was pretty disappointing, to be honest, for TV for me, though I have seen other people who disagree and maybe even say that it's one of the better years of TV within the last few years. So if that's you, if you disagree, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear some of your favorite shows this year. And yeah, love to hear from you guys. Either way, even if you agree with me and you don't think it was that great, and you still have some great shows, or if you think this was the best year in TV and you have some really, really great shows, love to hear from you guys. And if you enjoy this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate that. So we'll get into some honorable mentions. Like I always do with this video, I call it a top 5, but it's almost essentially a top 10 because I have a few honorable mentions. I think I have 4 honorable mentions, so technically a top 9. But anyways, we'll get to the honorable mentions in no particular order, and then we'll get to the top 5 shows of the year. So first honorable mention then here is Fallout Season 1, and this was on Amazon Prime. So this season, it was really great, right? Really great. I think, like I said in my top TV episodes video, I talked about that premiere, and I thought that premiere was just so impressive. Just really, really great. It's very high up there in my episodes list. I do think, it didn't quite, stay on that level of the premiere, though I don't think it really tried to, right? That was really an epic kind of feel, a really cinematic feel to that first episode. And I don't think it maintained that. I think at times through a few of these episodes, it really did feel like not much happened, right? Like, it was still a 50 or almost an hour-long episode, but even just within each perspective, right, of Lucy or Maximus well, I guess the Ghoul and Lucy are kind of connected there. I think it's episode 3 or so. And then later with Maximus, they're all kind of connected. But those first, like episode 2, 3, and maybe 4, I guess, just seemed like we didn't actually get that far, right? Like nothing was really happening throughout the plot of the episode. So I feel like it was just a little unevenly paced at times throughout the season. But other than that, I think it really did come together, really captured the charm, specifically in Lucy's perspective, early on, the charm of that, and it's all brought out with Ella Purnell's performance, which is just brilliant. She's just so great at that kind of comedic side a little bit, of that a little kind of comedic relief at times. And like I said, just the charm of her and that kind of, just the kind of naivety, right? The naivety of the people in the vault living there. And so that kind of creates that kind of comedic element there too. And then, Walton Goggins is the Ghoul, and Cooper Howard. He's just so he's just really great. I mean, obviously, love Walton Goggins, probably my favorite actor in TV, and movies too, but mainly in TV these days. And he's just amazing as always in this season of Fallout here. And I thought the actor, is it Aaron Morton, I think, playing Maximus? I thought he was good too. Nothing insane, but I thought he was good in his his role too. So yeah, so just I think overall a good season of television. Like I said, I don't think it was perfect. I think it could have been paced a little bit better. But specifically, like the start of the season just was really impressive. And honestly, that was enough to put it in this kind of conversation with my top TV shows of the year, because that just really blew me away with that first episode. And the only other thing I will say about Fallout is, and I said this in my tier list video, I don't necessarily blame the show for this, because it is based on the video games, obviously, and the lore that was already existing. But I do think they could perhaps do a better job of presenting this lore and just kind of the stuff, because I always felt like I was kind of at an arm's length away from knowing about this world and the lore. I just had so many questions, and I feel like they weren't really answered a lot of the times with the show. And so I was just kind of left a little confused at times, or a little curious. And I think they could have maybe provided a few more answers. But again, maybe that's kind of the nature of this story and the world, is that there's so many things going on, and so maybe it's a little, it doesn't all have to make sense kind of thing. So anyways, that was just my other thing that I definitely, felt throughout watching the season of the show, and just kind of felt a little bit, disengaged at times with what was going on, because I was just curious. I had so many questions, like, why does that work like that? Why is this going on? Where are we now? And that kind of stuff. And so anyways, that's just me though. I'm sure that, not everyone felt that way. Okay, so then next is The Franchise, Season 1 on HBO. And like I talked about previously, I don't think this show came together all that well, as a whole. Though I think I like this quite a bit better than most people, though. I saw some people really kind of down on this one. And there were certainly episodes within this season that I was kind of like, okay, we're just kind of, making jokes for the sake of making jokes. And it was just kind of dumb. It's kind of just like this stupidity humor, and getting a little too ridiculous to me at times. But then in other episodes, I thought it was, especially like the first episode, the pilot, I thought it was like effective satire, like pretty witty satire about the comic book movie making, the blockbuster movie making, right? The superhero genre, and this stuff that they're kind of attacking or criticizing in the show. And so I thought at times, in certain episodes in that, I thought it was actually pretty smart and pretty effective satire. And a lot of the episodes, though, even without the satire, are just really funny. I mean, episode 7 of the season, you'll see that in my top episodes video. I just thought that was easily the funniest, or one of the funniest episodes of TV I watched this year, regardless of the satire or the subject matter. Just really well written, really good comedic writing that was really funny. And so I have to put it in my honorable mentions for that reason alone. The cast here is just amazing. Himesh Patel in the lead is really great. And then all the supporting actors here, just all really great. Like Aya Cash, Daniel Bruhl is so good. Billy Magnuson, really great. Richard E. Grant is great. Darren Goldstein is really great. Just basically everybody in the cast is just really great here, and they really brought it home as well. So yeah, I'm sad to see it go. It was canceled on HBO, so it sounds like we won't see another season of the show. But yeah, I mean, I can kind of see it, right? If this show was a kind of witty satire and was really more effective at the stuff it was kind of going at, I think it definitely could have had a long life and been renewed for another season. But the way that people were kind of, I don't want to say hating on it, but some people were really down on the show. And so I'm not really surprised that it got canceled. But for my 2 cents, I would have liked to see another season to see what they would have done with it. And I just want to see more from these writers. I think they're really funny. They have the ability to make some really great comedic stuff. Obviously, a few of them are from Succession, the team of writers there, John Brown, Tony Roche, and a couple others here involved. So yeah, I mean, the tone is very Succession-like at times, so I love that aspect of it. So anyways, I did like this one. Again, I don't think it's a perfect show, all the way through, but the moments and some of the episodes here were easily some of the funniest and best comedic episodes of the year for me, for sure, on TV. Okay, so then speaking of comedy, next is Hacks Season 3, and it's on HBO Max. So this was very close to the top 5. I think probably if I had to choose, this would probably be number 6. I thought this season, I will say, the first 3 episodes to the season, I was sitting there, I'm like, is this going to be like the best season of Hacks by like quite a bit? Like, these are really great episodes to start. I thought they were just really on fire to start the season. And then, unfortunately, the next couple episodes were kind of down, and then the kind of end of the season, I think, kind of sputtered out a little bit, unfortunately. But the first 3 episodes, really great, and then you get that episode 6, Par for the Course, which would be in my top episodes video. Really, I mean, a pretty big episode, right, in terms of the guest performances, the, settings, where they are, the location shooting, and all the stuff. So I thought that episode was really impressive. And I think the finale was good. I think it set up the next season pretty well. But I did have, a couple kind of, nitpicks with it. But anyways, some really great moments in Hacks, as always. Each of these seasons is filled with some just really great moments and really kind of effective, satire or kind of, I guess, commentary on what's going on and kind of mirroring the real world, obviously, with Deborah, being this kind of fictional character, of course, but really trying to embody or capture, real life figures that are very similar to that. So, yeah, and Hannah Einbinder and Gene Smart, an unbelievable duo on TV right now. Perhaps the best comedic duo, right, in a comedy series right now. So, yeah, really great in this season as well. Again, there was 1 or 2 episodes that I thought, really had a lot of potential. Specifically the one where, I think they're stranded in a forest, right, on a walking trail. I saw that, I'm like, holy, this is really great. It's a really great potential. And I think the episode started off really well. And then it was just kind of disappointing. It didn't really all come together for me that well, and I thought that was actually one of the probably one of the worst episodes of the season. So there were just moments like that, in this season that I thought, damn, this could be really good, and it didn't really reach that level to me. But still, one of the best comedy series I watched this year. Some great moments in it, and the cast, it's obviously really great, and some really great guest performances. Caitlin Olsen, obviously really great, and she's kind of blowing up right now with that show High Potential, so good for her. She's great as Deborah's daughter in this one, and then J. Smith Cameron playing her sister. I really liked that dynamic this season, and she was great too. So yeah, we'll have to see. I think they've said that season 4 is going to be the last season of Hacks. And the creators are already developing another show with Kaley Cuoco, I believe, in it, which is kind of a similar premise. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that is. And I think season 4 is ending then. So, yeah, we'll have to see how it all comes together with the next season. I am looking forward to that for sure. And that'll hopefully be later this year in 2025. All right, so last then, my honorable mention is The Regime, and this was the HBO miniseries starring Kate Winslet and Matthias Schoenaerts, by the way, who does not get much attention, but I think really deserves it because he is insane in this series. To me, to my 2 cents, I think he actually overshadows Kate Winslet at times in this series. I think he's just amazing. But anyway, so The Regime. There was stuff in here that I absolutely loved, that I really respected, but it just didn't quite come together. The first 3 episodes of this, so it's 6 episodes, so the first half of it I thought was pretty great. I think this would easily be in my top 5 with just those 3 episodes. But then the last 3 episodes, I think specifically it's at the end of episode 3 where there's kind of a twist, or something happens there, and I was just, or maybe it is the start of episode 4, I can't remember exactly, but at some point there in the middle area, there's something that happens, and then just from there, it's just, I don't know, I just don't know why they chose that direction to take the rest of the series, and I think it doesn't help, it just doesn't help the overall series, and just kind of takes it to a weird place. where it kind of just like loses the plot to me. Like it's just like the tone of the show and everything just kind of changes, and it becomes basically like just this love story and this dynamic between Matthias Schoenaerts' character and Kate Winslet's character, where, you know, before that it was like a satire, a really effective satire at times, about this crumbling regime in Europe that's, you know, a fictional regime, but, you know, it's very much in our current world today with the US, China, and the superpowers and everything. And so there's a lot of political satire going on. And Will Tracy, of course, he's from Succession. And he comes to, you know, this series, creates it, develops it, and writes these episodes, or some of the episodes here. He also wrote The Menu, that film from a couple years ago. So he knows what he's doing. And I love the concept of the show. Like I said, I think some of the satire is really effective. The performances are really great. I think it's pretty funny at times too. But it just doesn't come together. And it, like I said, the ending just goes in a very odd direction where I think they just kind of lost the point of the show. I do love the finale, the very end of the finale. I think it actually kind of saves some stuff and brings it all back together. But it doesn't, you know, it's not enough to save the show to me, unfortunately. So anyways, kind of a mixed bag with the regime. I will say, though, and I said this in my review for the show when I did it on the channel, if you want to check that out, I did say this is easily one of the most unique, intriguing, memorable TV shows of the year to me. So even though it's not perfect, it didn't all come together well, this is like easily stands out to me, and especially in a crop of like a bunch of shows like to me this year that I kind of found like mid, right? This was not mid. This was like, you know, at times was like kind of bad and kind of frustrating, but it was just so unique and so intriguing and just so like out there and so odd at times, and funny, that it was just so memorable to me. I had to have it here in this video. I had to discuss it. Even though, yeah, maybe objectively it's not the best show, it was damn memorable, and it was really impressive at some points with that. So anyways, having said all that, those are my honorable mentions. Now, let's get into the top 5. All right, so then at number 5, to start off here, we have Sugar Season 1 on Apple TV+. So this one is interesting because as I made that tier list video a few days ago, I had only watched, I think, the first episode of Sugar Season 1, you know, back when it aired. I did a review for the pilot episode on the channel. But within the last few days here, I have went back and watched the full season of Sugar, all 8 episodes, and I'm caught up, and now they've renewed the show for a second season, so that'll be very interesting. But anyway, so I went back and watched it, and I am very glad that I did, because it is, to me, a top 5 TV show now that I have seen it. I think this season, I mean, the style of this, similar, I guess, to the regime in some ways, it's just really impressive and simply unmatched. I mean, just the artfulness of it, like the attention to detail and the you know, just how much they really cared about the style of this and how it looked. And just everything about it was just really, really masterfully done. I think the writing here by Mark Protasevich has to, you know, get some credit. And also the direction from Fernando Meirelles, I think is how you pronounce that, and Adam Arkin. The directors for this season, just amazing. Like the commitment, right, to that style, to the types of shots that they got, changing the aspect ratios, doing the like shots where you literally just have this like little circle on the screen, kind of zone, like really focusing in on something. The editing of the black and white movies, the classic movies that are playing, and then, you know, the editing of that to where we then see Sugar doing something that we just saw in that clip, or saying the line that we just saw in that clip. And obviously, you know, once the twist happens, or once that's revealed, you figure out, you know, that this style and even the narration from Colin Farrell, it all makes sense. It all comes together and just makes for a really, really enjoyable experience. So I will say I did get the twist spoiled for me because I had watched the first episode and then I read about the show, I think, you know, a few months ago. And yeah, I figured out that the twist, and I'm not going to spoil it here if you haven't seen it, so don't worry. I don't want to do that because I do feel like it takes away from it if you haven't seen the show. So I'm not going to do that, but I did get the twist spoiled to me. So when I went back and now watched it, then I was watching, with the knowledge of the twist of what it was. So I will say, though, so the first episode, completely understand the whole twist thing, right? Completely understand, because I watched that first episode, and then I figured out, got this twist spoiled, I'm like, what? What the like, how, right? Like, how is that possible? But then, when I went back and watched this now, like, I think, even by episode 3, you gotta at least have some idea, right, that something is a little off here, and you can kind of start piecing things together when it comes to that twist, right? And then by the time in episode 6, I mean, it's an amazing moment, one of the best moments of TV for me this year, is, the ending to that episode where it is, like, fully confirmed what the twist is and, like, who John Sugar is or what John Sugar is. That's all I'll say. But, by then, it's like, yeah, I feel like even if I didn't have it spoiled, I would have been 90%, there to the point that that's what it was. So to me, again, I knew about it, so this is maybe all in hindsight, but I actually think it's more of just that was kind of the premise of the show, more so than it was a massive twist of the show. I think, maybe I'm getting into semantics here and whatever, but I do think that. I think that it's more actually about that was baked into the premise of the show the entire season, right? Like, again, when you watch it in hindsight, knowing the twist, the whole show, like, makes more, I don't want to say makes more sense, because it still makes sense, but it's just more impressive. Like, it just is at another level, to me at least, with, again, the style and the black and white movies and the incorporation of that and the editing and just everything that goes into this. It just makes all the more, kind of, I don't want to say it makes more sense, but it just kind of brings it all together, right? It makes it more of an enjoyable experience. So to me, I think a lot of people calling it a twist, I think that's fair, but to me, I think it's actually almost part of the premise, and I think that's even more impressive that it was just from the very beginning. They knew exactly what they were doing. It's not like a show where they had this premise and then all of a sudden there's a twist and then it becomes a different show. No, like, I think the show was that show from the first frame of this season to the very end, whether we knew it or not. So anyways, I just think this was a really masterful job here, and easily one of the most unique, if not the most unique show that I watched this year. And then in terms of the actual plot of the show, I think it is pretty good, the mystery. I do think the finale, I do have some, problems with it. I don't think it all comes together perfectly. Certainly. And I am just a little curious at what they're going to do for a season 2. I think I'll definitely tune in, but it just seems a little odd to me, And like I said, with the show, being that type of show the entire time, I do think, though, people have a point with pointing that out now. With going into a season 2, I think it actually does become a very different show, or could become a very different show. And so I would agree in that aspect, but I don't agree with the fact that season 1 definitely feels like a whole 8 episodes that was very consistent and feels like the same show throughout, even though you have that twist thrown in there. So anyways, I'm curious. I'll definitely probably check out the first episode, at least, of season 2 when it comes. But yeah, just very curious, and the ending, little disappointing to me. But overall, really great show. Okay, number 4 then, next is Sweet Pea, Season 1. It was on Starz in North America here, but I think it was on Sky Atlantic in the UK. So this one is starring Ella Purnell, the second show on this list starring Ella Purnell, or in this video, rather. But yeah, she is amazing as this kind of main character, Rhiannon. So this is based off a book, but I've heard they take quite a few liberties with the book in, kind of adapting that and the actual story of it. It's quite different, apparently. But the character Rhiannon is kind of the same, and the concept that she eventually, spoiler alert, becomes a serial killer in the show. And I just think, this first episode is just masterfully done. I think it's in my top episodes video for sure. And yeah, it just really sets the tone for the show. They're really trying to capture that kind of Killing Eve vibe, with the way that the intro credits play even, the fonts that are used on the title cards, like just the cinematography and that too, like, and just the kind of playful humor at times too. Like, this is a black comedy, I think you would call it, but it's very playful at times, even though it's such sinister things going on in the actual episode. And that's really through Ella Purnell's performance too, which is really great. So they're trying to capture that kind of Killing Eve vibe, right? And I think they do it really well, and that kind of vibe, that style, it's just really, really effective with the show. So I will say, like I've said in other videos, and I did a review for this as well, I do think it unfortunately kind of loses the plot about halfway through. And it does become more of this kind of, it leans into the kind of cliche mystery kind of stuff of other shows that I've seen done better. But then the finale does kind of bring it back together, and a really great ending to that finale, which I thought was just so perfect, and such great payoff for what that season had up to that point, and also leaves the door open enough to the fact that, we could get another season of the show, and lo and behold, we do have a season 2 renewal now for the show, and we will be seeing that. So, yeah. I like I said, it kind of loses the plot a little bit. It's not a perfect season, but man, was I really impressed with this season of Sweet Pea. I thought it was just really, really impressive. And the other thing about it, perhaps the most impressive part actually about it, is yes, it's a black comedy, and I didn't think it was like laugh out loud hilarious, but there was certainly some really great comedic moments, and that could partially be the kind of lost in translation British humor, perhaps, for me as a North American viewer. But no, I did find it funny at times. The comedy was effective, but also the things that they were kind of commenting on, or at least making you think about with this show in terms of like bullying, kind of revenge, right? Eye for an eye type of thing. Like, if someone does something bad to someone else, do they deserve then that same thing back to them? Can they be forgiven? Can they be redeemed, right? This kind of stuff, like I said, the bullying, right? What effect that has, the trauma that has on somebody. And, obviously with our main character, right, of, okay, doing these acts, killing people, makes her feel alive, right? But she claims that she's doing it kind of for the better of society. And so it just raises all these questions and really makes you think about that main character. I think the finale, really great moment that kind of seals, to me, I think for the most part, seals the kind of answer to that in terms of our main character. But up until that point, I think you can really kind of wrestle with that. And it's, you're watching something that at times you're like kind of rooting for her, right? In kind of a sick, kind of twisted way. You're rooting for her. And I think that just speaks to the writing. Like, that is very impressive that you're able to do that. And again, play on that kind of stuff of knowing that she's been, a victim of this trauma and where she is in her life. And then kind of figuring out like, oh, no, we're on the wrong side of things here by the time that the finale comes, and maybe you're not rooting for her as much. So it is very much the kind of that anti-hero Walter White Breaking Bad type of thing, and I just think obviously it's not quite the same level as Breaking Bad, but it's just really great that a show like this, that's a black comedy, a comedy series at heart, can have those themes, can play on that stuff. And I think they do a really good job of it. So yeah, honestly, I was really impressed with Sweet Pea. I think Ella Purnell just absolutely, elevates this and is just brilliant, just absolutely brilliant in Follow too. But I think even more so in Sweet Pea this year. She's just so great. So yeah, really, and I wasn't really even going to check this one out this year, and I'm really glad I did, because it's easily one of my top 5 shows of the year for sure. They're at number 4. Okay, so next then is number 3, House of the Dragon Season 2. And this one was tough. I did want to put this maybe a little higher, but at the end of the day, I don't know. The more I think about this season of House of the Dragon, the more kind of disappointing I feel about it, or more disappointed I feel about the season as a whole. So I think, the highs of this season, obviously Rook's Rest in episode 4, the start to the season was really great. And even in some of those other episodes, which I don't think are that great, there are some moments and, just sequences, some storylines, some character beats that are just awesome. Like, just really great and that are not seen really in many other TV shows this year. So that alone, puts it at number 3. Like it's got to be that high because, I also have, some issues with Sweet Pea as well. So, there is that. But then there's also issues with House of the Dragon season 2. And so that's why I can't put it any higher than number 3 to me. Because again, the highs of it are really great. Episode 4 to me, spoiler alert, you'll see it in the top episodes video, very, very high for me. One of my favorite episodes of the year. So yeah, some really great moments, but this season, man, it's a lot of filler. Like not a lot of stuff happens. It really does feel like there's 2 episodes just missing off the end of this season that we'll eventually see in season 3, in 2 years when it comes out probably. So yeah, it's just overall as a package, as a season, and I think I said this in my review. I did a review for this season if you're interested on the channel. I said this in my review. I was like, in a few years from now, like when we look back on this show, like perhaps when it's ended or at least, maybe season 4 is coming out or something like that. And we look back on this season, like I think it's going to look really weird. Like it's going to be maybe even more disappointing because of just how incomplete and how odd it really feels towards the end there with it just being cut off. And just the rest of the season, like they still had 8 episodes to do stuff here. It's not like they were only limited to like 2, so they had 8 episodes to play some stuff out, and they just dragged a lot of stuff on for way too long. One of my least favorite things is Damon's storyline this season. I just was not a fan of it at all, really, at any moment. And the main thing that bugged me about it was I just never bought the fact that he would betray Rhaenyra. And that was kind of what they were playing on of like the whole season of, will he betray her? Will he end up bending the knee? Or is he raising this army for himself, to take the throne or take it away from her? And I don't know. To me, I never bought that. I never believed it I shouldn't say that, but I didn't think that it would happen. I never really thought for a second that it was realistic that Daemon would betray Rhaenyra like that and do that. But they kind of let it drag out the entire season, and just conveniently they just can't communicate with each other, which would have solved everything of this season within like a day or 2. Anyways, and then by the time the finale comes, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, he bends the knee. This is exactly what I thought would happen from the very beginning. And now I've just watched 6 episodes or whatever it was of this plot, and for what, right? Like for, why? Why do we spend all of this time? Maybe an episode or 2, okay, right? Like that's reasonable. But to spend a whole season like that when I never really bought into it anyways, to me it just felt like kind of filler and kind of a waste of time. And for a character like Daemon and Matt Smith as an actor, I don't know. I just feel like you kind of wasted his potential and his ability there for that. So anyways, though, like I said, Rook's Rest, that episode 4, amazing. A Son for a Son, the first episode, I thought was really, really great. So yeah, there's some great moments, some great performances, of course, from the cast, as always. Emma Darcy, Olivia Cook, I thought was really great this season. Ewan Mitchell as Aemond, right? Some really great performances. So overall, and also, like, just technically speaking, impressive. I mean, obviously the sets, the crafts, the costumes, everything like that, the directing, really, obviously it's high standard, it's a high bar, it's HBO, so that is also part of it. I mean, that's just like maybe 2 or 3 other shows this year replicated, that type of quality and that type of, level of technical achievement. So yeah, I mean, that's obviously a really great aspect of it too. So anyways, I did really expect, to be completely honest, I thought going into this year, I think I said it in a video actually, I said, House of the Dragon Season 2 is like probably going to be my favorite show of the year. It's probably going to be number 1. And unfortunately, I just can't put it there after what we got. Okay, number 2 then is What We Do in the Shadows, Season 6, the final season of What We Do in the Shadows. And I said in my top episodes video that this will be my chance to say farewell and kind of serenade, if you will, What We Do in the Shadows, because this is the final time that I will be referencing it in one of these top videos of the year. This is the last season. So, yeah, I'll just take a quick second. I mean, What We Do in the Shadows, I watched the premiere, the pilot episode, I think the night it aired, or like the next night it aired, and that was, I believe, 2019, and it's now 2025 that we're into, so just insane. And I think season 2 I watched a little bit after, but every other season I watched like basically the night every episode came out, or at least like the same week I was up to date with the show. So yeah, it's just been an amazing journey these 6 years. And I think the show kind of did dip in season 3 and 4. I don't think they were the strongest seasons, but I think these last 2 really kind of brought it back. And those early seasons, I mean, just amazing stuff. So yeah, just a really great series, easily one of the best comedies of the last 5 years. Even, I mean, I would go as far to say decade. To me, one of the best on TV. Definitely deserved way more Emmy support throughout its run. We'll have to see what season 6 gets, of course, at the next Emmys. But yeah, so really happy to have Shadows the last few years here. And it is sad to see it go, though, as I've said in other videos, I do think it was time. As we saw with this season, I do think we had a number of great episodes in this season, but none that really rivaled, the best of the best that we saw throughout Shadow's run here. And so I do feel like, in a way, maybe they kind of ran out of some of those really, high concept or, really elaborate ideas, really grand ideas for episodes. And so we didn't really see that or see as many of those this season while compared to past seasons. But it was just a very consistent, great season of TV to me. Like I said, the highs weren't necessarily as high as other seasons, but it was definitely more consistent than season 3 and 4 for sure. Maybe even season 1 to me. Like, I thought this was just there wasn't a single bad episode, or an episode that was even just okay. Every episode I think this season was at least good to great. For this season, and some really high points. I mean, there were some still, episodes that stood out to me. I talked about them in my top episodes video for sure, and they were great as well. They were some really great episodes. And then you want to talk about the finale as well to the season. I thought, again, they could have went in a different direction that may have been a little more, they kind of give us a twist or something happens with these characters that is kind of surprising to end off the show. But they did really stay the kind of conventional route and almost did this kind of meta episode, if you will, and kind of basically, putting into the episode the fact that nothing is really going to change with these vampires and the show, and this is kind of just the way it is, right? And so it kind of answers the question of, like, oh, are they going to do something big in this finale? Like, no, not really. I mean, they did kind of take the meta route, so there were some definitely interesting things in there. I really liked it was kind of like this fake sitcom ending with Guillermo and Nandor. So they did some funny, kind of unique things in that finale, but at the end of the day, it kind of ended, where we all kind of expected it to, I guess, that where the show has been the last 6 years. And so for some people, I think that was definitely satisfying, but for others who were maybe looking for a little something more, they might have been a little disappointed. But anyways, yeah. And the reason it's number 2, because I look at this list and I think, well, I have some problems with Sugar. I have some problems with Sweet Pea. I have some, kind of big problems with House of the Dragon, but the highs kind of outweigh them a little bit. But this is the first one, which I don't really have any problems with. Like, yeah, it's not, the highs don't reach the highs of other seasons, but that's not really a negative, right? That's not really a criticism of the season. So yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say about the season. I thought it was a really great season of television. Certainly not the worst of Shadows. And yeah, just a really great way to end off an amazing run of 6 years of this show. And I have to say, I am really looking forward to see what Paul Sims, Who else do we have? I think is Sam Johnson, Sarah Neftalis, Marika Sawyer. So those are some of the writing team. And then the directing with Kyle Newacek, Yana Gorskaya. And then, of course, the cast, like Harvey Guillen, Kayvon Novak, Matt Berry, Natasha Demetrio, Mark Proksch. Like, I just want to see what all of these names and what all these creatives go on to do, because I will be watching whatever that is, whatever they're involved in, and if they can somehow capture this magic again, whether they're all together or maybe a couple of them are together in the future, whatever it is, I'm really looking forward to it. So that's always the thing with these shows, right, is they have a great run, and then, maybe we don't see it again, maybe they can't capture that same magic, but sometimes they do, and sometimes they create another show that's just as good or maybe even better. So we'll have to see what they do, but I'm really looking forward to seeing that and seeing where they go from here. So really great, really a bittersweet farewell to what we do in the Shadows for sure. All right, so number one then, I could give Shadows the number one spot, unfortunately, but it is Masters of the Air, the limited series on Apple TV+. And it is the third in the kind of series, if you will, of miniseries about World War II, produced by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. Yeah, I do think this is probably the third best. It's probably the weakest out of the three miniseries. But that's not, that's not saying a whole lot, because Band of Brothers to me is like the best series ever made. One of the best TV shows up there. The Pacific, not quite on that level, but still like better than the majority of a lot of the stuff I've seen. It's just a really impressive series as well. So yeah, it's the third best, but it's still a really great miniseries. It doesn't quite capture to me the same kind of bond or connection to a lot of these characters that Band of Brothers did so well. And it does feel like they were kind of going for that, so maybe they don't quite come up, or they kind of come up short in that regard. I just don't think these set of characters is as, you just don't feel as much of a connection to a lot of these characters, whereas Band of Brothers, you had like at least 10, honestly, characters based off real people, but characters that you cared about and that you like really loved and wanted to see what they were going to do next or what was going to happen to them. If something did happen to them, you wanted to know if they were going to be okay. And in this show, maybe have 2 or 3 of those, right? And so and again, it is the nature of the story that they're telling, though. There was a very high fatality rate within the 100th Bomb group, right, they're called? Or the Bloody 100, right, they're called. And so that's kind of the nature of the story they're telling, right? Like, a lot of these guys didn't stick around that long, and there weren't a lot of long-term connections made in the same way that Band of Brothers had, right, in that kind of group of men. And so, yeah, completely fair, but I do think they still could have done a little bit better with those characters. But having said that, that's kind of the real thing that kind of doesn't quite compare to Band of Brothers, but I mean, technical achievement-wise, really impressive. I mean, specifically this one episode that I'm going to highlight in my top episodes video, Cary Fukunaga directing, absolutely stellar job. Really immerses you in that plane, and like I said in that video, like, I don't want to say it makes you feel that or gives you the feeling that those young men had in those planes, because I'm sure that could never quite be replicated. But at least it does something. Like, it gives you a little bit of a taste of what that must have felt like, and it's horrifying. Like, the tension, the suspense, the feeling that you get of just being trapped in that piece of steel that's somehow miraculously flying through the air and getting just bombarded by enemy fire from all sides, from the top and below you. Like, it's insane. And so the way that they were able to capture that was so impressive, specifically that one episode, but other episodes they do it as well. So just really, really impressive stuff with Masters of the Air. So yeah, on a technical level, really great. Some of the performances here were really great as well. Austin Butler, Callum Turner is really great. Barry Keoghan, oh my goodness. I mean, he is just amazing in this series. So kinetic. He just brings so much energy to this. And, spoiler alert, he doesn't last the whole series. He does have a pretty short stint with the series. I think he is based off a real person, so not really spoilers, but anyways, he does have a short stint, but in the stint that he is in, he is so good and captures so much energy and so much intrigue when he's on screen. So his performance, really, really great. One of the best of the year for me. So yeah, it just really all came together well. So impressive. I really love these series. So I think that also kind of plays into it. Objectively, is it maybe the best? Like maybe Shadows is a better, altogether series or season of TV. But to me, I just love this. I love a lot of war movies like this, depicting this time and the things that they went through. So to me, I think this is just a really brilliant, job that they did with Masters of the Air. Even though, yeah, it doesn't live up to the other two, but few shows do. So that's a very high bar. So anyways, I'll put it at number 1 for my top TV shows of the year, but a lot of these shows on this list I really enjoyed, so it's tough. And I will say too, like in other years, there's been a clear number 1. I mean, basically every year I've done this video, there's been a pretty clear number 1. It's usually been Succession or Better Call Saul, whichever season was airing that year. And this is the first year where I didn't have that mainstay show like that was a for sure number 1. So this top 5 is a lot closer to me than in previous years. And so to have Masters of the Air at number 1, yeah, it's definitely my number 1, but a lot of these other shows are really, really great too. So anyways, that'll just about do it for my top 5 TV shows of the year, along with some honorable mentions there off the top. So like I said, love to hear your guys' thoughts on TV this year. Did you think it was a little disappointing like me, or did you think it was one of the best years in recent memory? Either way, or maybe somewhere in the middle, right? Love to hear your guys' thoughts and love to hear some of the shows that you checked out and really enjoyed this year in TV. So stay tuned then as we look forward now to the new year, 2025. I'll come up with my most anticipated TV shows of 2025 video. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. But anyways, guys, that'll just about do it for this one. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you then in my next video.